So Dr. Strange, also the slave owner from the movie 12 Years a Slave. So he was, I don't know if this was a guilt
And
role
then
that
you
he
mentioned
did.
that Edward Norton was in American History X, and my mind was just blown.
Yeah.
Like,
guilt?
the meme magic is real. Yeah. Guys, like, they're recreating
their own history.
their own, yes.
So Benedict Cumberbatch he has his 7th great grandfather owned slaves. He bought the Cleland plantation in 1728 in St. Andrews, Barbados. And look, the easiest thing to say here is the low IQ, it doesn't take a genius to say thing is look, he didn't own slaves. His dad didn't own slaves. This isn't his responsibility. I understand
If
that's
I
very
could estimate
easy.
Benedict Cumberbatch's net worth, I don't think that a few $1 million would make that much of a dent. But again, that it's not about just that.
No, exactly.
It's also unjust, I think. So basically, when Barbados abolished slavery in 1830, they provided compensation to people who owned plantations that were forced to shut them down. At the time, that was £6,000.
Equivalent to like 1.2.
Which is now, no. It's 3.6 million.
Oh, wow.
Not just one. 3.6 million might have to come from Benedict Cumberbatch or other members of his family, possibly. I think this is weird because, it seems like they're specifically targeting people who are famous or public figures. Like there was this one British MP who happens to be a conservative.
Oh yeah, let's show this
is
guy.
also getting targeted because he has property in Barbados.
And I want to show this guy because, like, look, okay, when I think of this story, what I laughed the most about, and then that article went away. Where did my hold on, reopen?
Well, basically, he just looks cartoonishly villainous.
Yes, he looks hilariously like a bad. He's wearing like a suit. I deleted that.
It made you unreasonably angry.
It did. But yeah. So this guy, he's like wearing like the suit jacket and he's got the vest on underneath. He looks exactly like what you imagine a smarmy politician would
You're
look
against
like.
3-piece suits, but a specific stance to take.
No, but it was like a wool. It wasn't like a button-up vest. It was like a wool one that you wear golfing.
You're very principled against
Yes,
this.
I am.
Is this a political stance or a fashion stance?
It's both. It's both. Okay.
Aside from that guy, I'm kind of reminded of what just happened with the Romanian government detaining Andrew Tate.
This guy.
Here is
Tell me this is a guy that you don't just want to just...
His name's Richard Drax. And he's a conservative MP who is also getting investigated for what reparations he might own to Barbados. It's also not enforceable and purely for virtue signaling. And again, I think that if Benedict Cumberbatch plays this game and capitulates and does pay out the money, even though he's not being forced to, they won't be satisfied. I think that they will always be asking for more. It's not just about a sum of money. It's about, I think, a public ritual of
humiliation.
Yeah, humiliation. And this reminds me of the Romanian government detaining Andrew Tate because I looked into it further and saw that they have this ulterior motive, that the Romanian government has like a geopolitical motive in looking harder on crime to the rest of the world.
I remember the first time that we talked about, like months ago, the first time we ever talked about Andrew Tate, you're like, well, he's working, he lives in Romania. He's probably doing shady stuff if he's in Romania.
Because of course, like their police force is very infamously corrupt and they're doing things that are high profile to work against that narrative. And ultimately, it seems like it's less about Andrew Tate and more about their geopolitical motives. So maybe Barbados is making a similar move like that.
What was the first thing you thought of when you saw that, like, they were going, like, they mentioned an actor specifically going after somebody who just because not even his grandfather, his 7th great grandfather owned slaves, and since he's successful, I guess he should pay up.
Yeah, I mean, the question of reparations is obviously like pretty hotly debated. The best response I've seen to it was from a British official who during an interview with I think Fox News or
she's
maybe
like,
it was
this guy,
CNN.
Richard Drax, the guy you're making fun of.
No, she was like, it was this female spokesperson for the British government, and she was like, no, it's very important that we talk about reparations. In fact, we should go after the people who were intricately involved in the slave trade, tribes in Africa that sold their own people or their enemies into slavery.
That was the first thing she said. She's, what if there's black actors who came from...
It's a really
descendants of
common
slaves that-
talking point that then the media continues to skip over. I find that this argument that we would like specifically target Benedict Cumberbatch, like that goes to the nepotism thing. Like he's probably just from a wealthy family. Like
his mom was an actress who told him to not use that last name because she thought it would make him a target.
Yeah, it's not that interesting, like, of an argument to me, just because, like, oh, we're targeting wealthy people to pay for things from the past. Like, this is an argument we hear all the time. We also hear it with the way we talk about tax policy in the U.S. I don't think he should do anything about it. I think that this is something that can get litigated away. I don't think they'll actually successfully compel any of these people, because it's not really about like a pop culture figure, right? It's about wealthy people from the British aristocracy and the British elite having to pay for something they themselves are not really involved in, but if they refuse to pay it, it makes them look bad. Like, I don't personally like that game. I think Mary's right. It's probably just a political mood on Barbados' part, but you know, to the extent of time, like, this happens and will continue to happen pretty regularly. I don't think that there is a way to stop people from trying to get someone to pay for the sins of the past, especially when it's that far removed.
And the person in the article, the very first person who was talking about it, the person from Barbados that was pushing for this, was a self-described revolutionary who's clearly going for revolutionary policies that are a form of wealth redistribution.
Some people thought that this could be a slam dunk for Cumberbatch on the front of PR. Like, it's an easy win for him because
pay the money and,
what is $3 million to someone who acts in Marvel films as a leading man? Like, obviously it's a drop in the bucket, and then he would be able to clear his name and get in good with the people that are playing this virtue signal
not
game.
really clearing his name, right? He's in some ways just affirming this accusation that's leveled against him. In fact, they don't give any specific information about what his family's role in this was, right? They say they own slaves, but what does that mean? How many?
250, I think.
250. Are we talking about people who were eventually freed and given compensation? Like, slave ownership is obviously wrong, but there are a lot of ways that people dismantled that system. And the British government was one of the first governments, I think the first government in the world, to undo the slave trade. So to a certain extent, like, Barbados, to me, is sort of saying, we wish the British government was more involved because we would have more financial support. Like, this is a weird way to go about it.
Do you think that he should respond at all?
No.
Yeah.
Like, since he's a public figure and this is like a big thing.
Giving it's adding fuel to the fire. Like, responding to this is then making it so, like, if he pays the $3 million, right, they're going to be like, well, you paid the $3 million quietly. You should have issued a public apology. Well, if you pay the $3 million and you issued a public apology, really you should be more aware and be actively involved in, you know, whatever. It's just this never ending cycle of seeding things. We can all agree that slavery is bad, but I don't know that Benedict Cumberbatch is specifically responsible for anything that his great grandfather did.
In 2013, he portrayed William Pitt, the younger in the 2006 movie Amazing Grace, about the battle to abolish slavery in Great Britain. So 12 Years a Slave in 2013 and Amazing Grace in 2006. And he says he viewed his role in Amazing Grace as a sort of apology for his family's role in the slave trade. So he has mentioned it before, and just by not taking a stage name was a bold move on his part when he knew. I mean, but if he had
taken a stage name and it had come out who he was connected to, they would have been like, you're hiding from your ancestry and your horrible ties.
Yeah.
Like, it's very rare that taking a pen name or taking a stage name in the day and age of the internet is actually as useful as you think it is, right?
Yeah.
Like, if this had been the 50s and it would be harder to figure out, maybe, but I think that, like, acknowledging it is as much as he can do.
But clearly, like, making that comment, like, I did this role as an apology. Clearly, he profited off of taking that role.
I made millions of dollars in my apology
so that I can say sorry
trade.
for party rocking.
Yeah.
I don't know. If he feels like it's an apology, you know, that's his choice. I just don't think that, like, compelling him to pay millions of dollars for.
I'm kind of surprised though, because like most of the responses were saying that this is a good idea unequivocally. It's kind of become this mainstream opinion to have that he ought to pay reparations because I mean, look at this Ivy League boarding school that he went
they
to.
mentioned
And
they're like, he was
just
educated at
he
the
just
Harrow
looks like a
School.
rich British guy, okay? And we
Kind of
don't
like
like
me,
him.
kind of
I
like
mean,
me
that's why
in
you're
the
able
MP.
to bring up this other MP,
Yeah.
right? Like they
Yeah.
are targeting the British elite and aristocracy. Like,
At least
that's
if you
not that
currently own
interesting.
land in Barbados that has a little bit more of a claim
Yeah.
than Cumberbatch, because like if you're removed 7 generations, how is that even close enough to take responsibility anymore? Right? Like generational
like-
wealth only goes so far, and he's also earned for himself as an individual way more than
Yeah.
whatever he was given.
I would be more interested if they were going off of the going after the descendants who still lived in Barbados, right? 7 generations mean that he is not. I mean, I would be shocked if he is the only living relative of this person. He's just the only one of current note, right? So,
Well,
it's I don't
next
know.
we've got Edward Norton,
Yeah.
notorious Nepo baby.
Yeah, and
12th removed grandson of Pocahontas, as he just learned.
I wonder if he's related to Elizabeth Warren. Maybe he's
I
related to
think that this
Elizabeth
is his
Warren somewhere.
opportunity to go full Elizabeth Warren. Like he can just like be like Justin Trudeau and start wearing costumes.
It's funny that
his statement
PBS
was
has
worse.
a ripoff of TLC's like ancestry show.
It's also funny because now, like in the climate we're in America, a bunch of actors doing this is basically like you're about to get a lashing for your past.
Yeah,
They're rolling
you're
the
asking
dice.
for
Yeah.
trouble.
You're just like, why would you want this? If you're a famous actor, why would you want to roll the dice and find out that you're related to like some warlord? Like,
There were also people commenting that it's just dubious because, like, I just checked my ancestry account and I'm a 12th removed grandson of Pocahontas too. I'm sure that would apply to a lot more people than Edward Norton. And then he was confronted with the fact that he's also
So here's-
descended from slave owners.
here's his statement. So it says, "What
Does
was
it
that
even
like?"
out? Is
Yeah.
he like a clean slate then?
Yeah.
I
And so it says,
guess.
"What is it like to see that?" Gates Jr. asked after presenting the actor with the photo of a family of 7. He says, "The short answer is these things are uncomfortable, and you should be uncomfortable with them. Everyone should be uncomfortable with it," responded the Fight Club actor. "It's not a judgment on you and your own life, but it's a judgment on the history of this country. It needs to be acknowledged first and foremost, and then it needs to be contended with," Norton added. Well, we've been contending with it nonstop for a long time now, and for a lot of people, it does feel like a commentary on them. That's how a lot of people take it. And it's very easy for somebody in his position to say that while he is the platform of a PBS special, publicly broadcasted, funded by the government so that he can get his lashing and be done with it.
But otherwise, I mean, why would they even ask him, how does that make you feel?
Yeah.
When he's
What's
not
he supposed to
obligated
say?
to feel any way about that. In
Yeah.
fact, I think it would be perfectly valid if he said, like, I don't really feel any particular way about that because I'm not connected to that history.
If the guy was really gnarly, he would ask, like, did this inform your role at American History X? Like, did you channel your ancestry?
How
to
far
play
are
that?
we
Yeah.
going to take this?
Like, yeah.
No,
just-
people were making jokes about that. At least some people had a sense of humor about it. In relation to the Cumberbatch story, someone said, "Uh-oh, time for him to burst out the time stone." And
Roll
then
back
another
time.
person said that when he was in 12 Years a Slave, he really had to pull that performance straight out of his bloodline.
Yeah. Well, look, it's just one of those things where every time we see something like this, I know it sounds low IQ, but I'm just like, why? Why do you do this to this person who had nothing to do with it?
But then they play along, so really, like, you have to
Is
blame
it-
them partly.
Yeah. Do we, like they bring this on themselves with the attitude that they inspire of constant guilt
Yeah.
in Hollywood.
The self-flagellation is,
Yeah.
of course, like a trait of Hollywood narcissism.
It's like he avoids responsibility for what happened while also salting the wound that the nation feels for what's going on because the topic keeps getting brought up.
Well, and like, what's the purpose, right? So you go on the show, you get your ancestry tested, right? You're related to all kinds of
I like the
people.
idea that there's like a joke one where they make up that you're just related to the worst person on earth.
That's an
Did
episode
you
of The
know
Office.
that
Yeah.
you're related to Hitler?
Like-
How do you feel about it? Sorry for the Holocaust.
Yeah, that's what would happen.
Like,
we
what
can-
is this all about?
But that's what I'm saying. Like, you go on the show, you find out related to all kinds of people. Maybe one of them is notoriously great. Maybe one of them is notoriously bad. And then you suddenly, because you are also sort of famous, are a spokesperson for this person's actions, right? Like,
Yeah.
it doesn't really make sense, right? You didn't choose, as far as I know, what family you were descended into. So how are you supposed to account for something that happened before you were even alive, right? If you want to go on an apology tour for whatever is in your family's past, more power to you. I just don't know what purpose it's doing for anyone, right? It serves the show, PBS's, what's it called? Finding Your Roots. Like, they get probably this partnership with ancestry.com. They get compensated for that. They get some views. They get some viral videos if they put it on their YouTube channel. But, like, I don't know why Edward Norton would do this other than to grovel and to show that he's like with the times and he's apologetic.
It is also funny too, because it would probably disproportionately affect celebrities, because so much of it is a modern American oligarchy in the celebrity class, right? Like, so much of our Hollywood culture are 4 generations of celebrities, or people who have like, how many actors come from famous dads, come from famous moms, not just in acting, but in business, you know, look at the Baldwins. Like, how many of the Baldwins have been actors? There's so many.
Some people would say nepotism is like a victimless crime, where you don't have to pay reparations, even though you didn't earn that money that you inherited through generational wealth. You didn't earn it off the backs of people who were victimized.
And I
would be more interested in sort of the Me Too take on this, to be honest. Like, there are a lot of stories, especially back in like the 1920s, of Hollywood, just kind of crazy parties, mysterious deaths.
Eyes Wide Shut parties in the 80s.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, slavery bad. Gotcha. But who is he descended to more directly in Hollywood that he would have to then come out and be like, I am very sorry that my uncle, this famous director or whatever, has been accused by multiple women in the 1950s.
It's far more prevalent and relevant.
And it has something to do with the industry he's actually in. As far as I know, Edward Norton is not in the business of patronizing the slave trade. I mean, I hope not.
It says that his grandfather, was like owned now. He was a now defunct shopping mall developer.
Okay.
Oh, so the environmentalists aren't asking him questions.
They're just like now for climate change.
The thing is, they
the
could have asked him,
quintessential real estate developer.
Right, they could have asked him so many things about more relevant atrocities, let's say, if you believe that, with the shopping mall, that his family has committed, and they just
Did you support Hot Topic being put in every
Right.
mall in America? Do you know what that did for fashion?
Do you know what the developing the
things.
modern shopping mall did for small businesses? Like, he's not asked to answer for any of that. They're giving him, in all honesty, the softball. Do you feel bad that you're related to slave owners? Yes, I feel terrible. That's it. Right? He already knows exactly what he needs to say. This is the easiest answer. If you had to ask him, like, hey, your director or your grandfather who built the shopping malls cut down millions of trees, which, you know, negatively impacted the native species of whatever.
In the lake.
Right. Yeah. How would he respond to that?
Imagine they're like, well, how do you feel about the slave trade? He's like, well, he doesn't just say no off the bat.
There are pros and cons, he says.
He's like, look, it could happen to anybody.
But that's how he would respond to the shopping mall question, right? Yep. Because he's still profiting off that wealth. Like, I just find this to be like the most obvious answer. Yeah. It's not that. It's the same thing with Benedict Cumberbatch being like, I'm very sorry about what my ancestors did. Like, of course you are.
Look, I think that what he said about it's so self-congratulatory to be like, this is my apology. Me making millions of dollars off a movie role is my apology.
Yeah.
Because this is my art and my art is my
It's
job.
just like when Will Smith recently did Emancipation,
and his
he's
daughter
playing
like,
a slave, and even his daughter is like,
do we need another
Do
slave
we
movie?
really need another slave movie? Because it's not accomplishing anything except for boosting Will Smith's ego, who has grown up essentially in the spotlight and supreme levels of comfort unknown to all of human history.
Yeah. Yep. And modern slavery is a thing. Like, there is a very serious modern slave culture and modern slave trades that, like, all of these people who are being asked to comment on the very clearly condemned historic slave trade are not at all impacting, right? The $3 million, I can't speak to whether the reparations are needed in Barbados or worth it, right? But like Will Smith, Edward Norton, Benedict Cumberbatch, none of them are like setting up foundations to help people who are literally trafficked into slave trade today, right? They could address a modern problem, but instead we're hearkening back to the softball answer of, do you think slavery as done in the early American history is bad? And they all say yes. Like, this is a softball question with no real meat, and there's no real change in the world.
There was the NBA owner not that long ago when asked about the Uyghur Muslims, was like, nobody cares. Like, these things are happening.
But to be fair, we then sent our Olympic athletes to China to compete, even though we're like, it's bad. We think this is terrible. Anyways, they're going to go.
Yeah.
But
we send them in protest.
This is very political for your show. I'm sorry.
Well, yeah.
I guess we're touching on sports, which I always knew you guys were my favorite sports broadcaster.
Chats. Thanks for watching this clip, guys. If you want to see full episodes or follow us on social media, links are in the description below. Bye.
Bye.